Good morning. This is Jason Dean back at it again. I'm doing a double feature today. Why not? Because it's so goddamn cold. So, gonna be in the house for a while. It's supposed to warm up a little bit later, so we'll see. But yeah, I want to thank everybody again for supporting this channel. Today, or actually this next show, I just did a video a few minutes ago on a really incredible exploitation movie, Master of the World. So stay tuned for that. That's being uploaded as we speak. Just finished that one, and then usually like I do a video. I usually do a video every day. I try not to miss a day. I really enjoy doing it. It's kind of, I don't know, it's like therapy for me, I guess, to a degree. But I kind of miss. Occasionally, I'll miss a day with a video with one of doing these YouTube videos, but I try to do one every day, and it's really I notice it helps with the channel grow. But it's something. There's so many movies that I love, and I'm always like eager to talk about. I try to obviously keep track of what I've been doing, and I am always conscious of a bunch of movies that I have yet to talk about and explore through this channel. And this is a movie that I've been wanting to do for a really long time, and for whatever reason I got sidetracked or distracted. And that is this is like, I feel like the epitome of exploitation. I mean, it's so unbelievable. It's something to experience, and that's called Massacre in Dinosaur Valley. This movie is just a total gem, totally underground. I discovered this movie a couple of years ago. I've seen this movie a whole bunch of times. I just love this movie. I feel like this movie, like I said, I think it's the epitome of exploitation. It's definitely more. It's got aspects of it plays out more like like an action movie, but it's got elements of horror. It's really funny, and and it's it's so like incredibly low budget, and it's so trashy. Um, and to believe that this film was released on Blu-ray and even 4K is just completely insane. Like a totally obscure movie. Um, I think this is definitely one of the best, one of my favorite exploitation movies of all time. And I bought this a couple of years ago, I believe, at this point. And I've seen it a bunch of times. And I remember I have this real funny experience with this film. My friend Emmett Layler, who was a guest on the show a few months ago, and we did a show where we talked mostly about Stephen King and his books, and a lot of the film adaptations around around a lot of his books. And then we also we talked about a lot of other things around horror also. Emmett and I we're really good friends, but we have a real deep love for horror. He is like, I can consider him to be like a specialist when it comes to Stephen King. He's he's well more versed and well more read than I am. There are some of his books I really do like, and there are certain films of his or film versions of some of his books that I really love. The big screen adaptations. So, we had a really great show a few months ago, but I remember it was probably maybe a month or two after I had bought this movie. Emmett and I watch quite a few movies together. We've gone to the theater a bunch of times, and a lot of the times I'll go over to his house, and we'll like do a dinner thing, take out, or he'll make some food. He's an amazing cook, and we'll usually like hang out and watch movies. And for a while, like when we started doing that, I started bringing over movies, and this was one of the movies I brought over. And there was like a group of you know, there's like 5 or 6 of us, I think, that were over his house. And I think I definitely I brought this over there. I think I brought Blood Feast from Herschel Gordon Lewis, and I brought 1 or 2 other exploitation movies. And this was the one everybody agreed on, right away that we have to watch this. And when we fired this up, I had seen it a few times at that point. Everybody just was just like enamored with this. Like everybody was just laughing their asses off. Like everybody, and it was just hilarious. And it was funny because after we got done watching it, and then and he knew, like, because I got in the habit of, when we started doing that and getting together to watch movies, I would usually bring some movies over from my collection, and sometimes we'll watch those. And then the last few times that we got together, he watches a lot of films through lots of different streaming platforms, which I don't do or have. So we've been mixing it up where we'll watch a movie. Like one of the last movies we watched over his place was the new Hellraiser movie. So we mix things up. But generally, for the most part, we were like, I'd bring movies over and we'd watch them. And I remember the funny reaction that this movie caused, especially from him, was he really enjoyed it and thought it was like utterly ridiculous and just kind of a shit show, but he kind of really loved it too. But he kind of thought, his impression that when I brought all these movies over, and they were all like these crazy, exploitation movies, he thought I was bringing them over to kind of mess with them and to try to like fuck with them, and and that I'm just gonna, like, he kind of assumed I was gonna just intentionally bring over the most ridiculous movies I could find, just as a joke, and not from a perspective of, oh, let's watch this movie. This is really good. Like, this is a good movie. He kind of thought I was doing it as like a joke and like almost like a dare. And he didn't. And I remember when that came up after we got done watching it, I said, he was like, he didn't know how to take it. Like, he was kind of like, did you do that as a joke? Was that, were you trying to be funny? And I was like, no, as absurd and as ridiculous as this movie is, and the other movies I brought over, but particularly Massacre in Dinosaur Valley, I actually really love this movie. Like, yeah, it's totally absurd and it's total trash and it's totally kind of awful, but it's amazing. It's just like, it's just great. It's like pure freaking entertainment on every level. And I remember telling him, well, no, I actually, like, I didn't bring these movies over or bring this movie over as like a joke to try to be funny and to try to mess with people. I brought them over because I generally love these movies. They're my favorite kinds of films. I love all kinds of films, but these are my favorite kinds of films, and they're just so entertaining. And I generally love these films, so it was like, it was hilarious. And I remember his reaction was like, "Oh, wow, like that's, I didn't really think of it, think of the situation that way." So, and I remember we've talked about that too. Like when we did the show, when we did our interview segment a few months ago, we were, he was talking about like how I'm really like, uploading a lot of videos to my channel, and I remember him talking to somebody. He said he was talking to a friend of his, and how, and he was mentioning me, how the two of us, have a real love for horror films. And then he was talking about Film Fanatic, the YouTube channel, to his friend, where he was like saying how, yeah, like Jason really likes to take the deep dive into the horror world and like the exploitation world. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of where my head is at, most of the time. And that's kind of, what I always think about. And like I said, like for me, as ridiculous and as absurd and as trashy as this movie is, it's one of my favorites. And to me, like I said, it's like the essence of like the ultimate kind of the essence of like the ultimate party movie. And I think it's like not only is it the movie itself is like a really is really primal and really raw and so low budget and like so trashy. And I regard this movie as just like a pure it's pure entertainment, and it's such pure escapism. And to me that really, you know, on a maybe a little bit more of a serious note, if you can say anything serious around this film, but on a little bit more of a serious note, to me that's like why I love movies, why I love to go to the movies, when I go to the movies and I'm going to see a movie that I've maybe heard about a little bit, or a movie that I've been really looking forward to see, to seeing it for a while, or maybe if I go into a movie and it's really cold and I'm going into it cold and I don't know anything about it, it's that you know that love, that drive to escape for a couple hours from your everyday existence. And to me, this movie is like the epitome of that. It's just like it's so far removed from anything in reality that the core of it is pure escapism. It's just and it just strikes a deeper chord for me in a lot of ways, because that's why I love movies, and that's why I love that experience of watching a movie, whether it's for the first time or not, or and particularly going to a movie theater and having that total immersion. Like, this is as ridiculous and as absurd as this movie is. In that regard, it is a deep thing. It's kind of a funny thing, you know. And you know, a real famous TV show that was on for quite a few years, and I think in the 2000-ish period, early 2000s and like the late 90s, that, you know, many people love, myself included. It's a show I eventually want to, you know, if I come across it, I want to buy it on, I'm sure there's like a box set of it, but that's Mystery Science Theater. Mystery Science Theater was basically this like more or less a comedy parody show of where it was a robot and this other character, where they would basically watch all of these exploitation movies and grindhouse movies, and they would just basically rant about the movies and just trash them and make fun of them and just, you know, engage with them the whole time while the movie's playing. And that was the whole allure, and the whole like centerpiece of the show was listening to these two characters trash these movies but laugh at them and just have a good time. And all of the movies that they would show on that show, or in that series on Mystery Science Theater, were grindhouse movies. And so it's, you know, and I remember watching that show as a kid, and like that was on, it might even yeah, I think I was maybe actually in high school when that show came out. But I remember watching that show, and it was just like so fun and just like hilarious. And to think now that my collection has grown to the point, and kind of the movies that I generally really try to seek out are those films that were on that show. And yeah, I just think it's like ironic and hilarious and the whole thing. But this movie came out, this masterpiece, Massacre in Dinosaur Valley, came out in 1985. What an amazing year. The basic kind of synopsis of the story, if you want to call it that: a plane crashes in the Amazon jungle, and its passengers must battle their way through cannibals, slave traders, wild animals, and murderous piranha fish to their safety. It was directed by, it's an Italian movie too, which is awesome. And I do believe that this has the you can watch it in its original language. There's a dubbed version, but I also believe a dubbed English version, but there is an Italian version where you can watch it with English subtitles. And again, like I've said on other shows, and my last previous show, Master of the World, the show I just did, is an Italian movie also. And this was directed by Michel Massimo Michel Massimo Tarantini. Massimo Tarantini. And it came out, it's an Italian movie with a few American actors. Um, Michel Massimo Tarantini was a pretty famous exploitation director in the 80s. Um, he did a whole slew of movies. I have not seen, this is the only film of his that I have seen. He did one movie which was considered to be like a sex comedy in '78 called uh, The School Teacher in the House, which looks amazing and hilarious. Um, and he just turned 80 years old, which is wild. Confessor of a Lady, The Policeman in New York, um, School Days in '76, Massacre in Dinosaur Island in 1985. This very movie here that I'm holding. Taxi Girl in '77. Um, yeah, a whole ton of movies. That's one of the things like that I've just been blown away by discovering a lot of these films over the last couple of years, or even more recently, the last few months. That you know how prolific these guys were. They're really obscure directors, but they had like the body of work that these guys cranked out is just like ridiculous, just nuts. And they like the span of their career, like from what I've gathered from a lot of these exploitation directors, literally like went on for decades. Like a lot of, I mean, so it's something to kind of be admired. I mean, a lot of directors, like say more modern day directors, put out a couple of movies, every couple of years, but then you don't really hear about them for a long time. They don't have like a consecutive career of where they're putting movies out every couple of years. And then like or some directors like I mentioned before, Jess Franco, the real Spanish the Spanish the real famous underground Spanish exploitation director. There were times and situations where he was like putting out two movies a year, uh, and you don't really see that with directors now. Like, and that's the thing that's just blown away. Granted, they were able to do these projects for like virtually no money, but other films that he did, um, The Wife, The Last Daddy, uh, The Torturer. I mean, it's insane. Naked and Violent, School Teacher. Um, I mean, just the list goes on and on and on. Michel Massimo Tarantini. Yeah, just amazing. And this is the only film I have of his. Um, and the special features on this are just amazing. There's a really great interview with Michael Sopkiv, who was an American actor. I believe he's like the only American actor in this, and it's a fascinating journey because he talks about how he kind of lived a pretty dark life. He was in jail and I think prison for a while, and then after he got out of prison and jail, he went. I think he was in jail when he was a kid, and then he ended up going to prison for a while. He got out of prison, kind of got his life together, and then he became a model. He became a male model, and then he got an agent, and then he got picked up. His agent got his profile out and about, and then he got discovered by a few different Italian directors during the 80s, during the height of the exploitation world, and he ended up moving to Italy and became a star of all of these like crazy Italian exploitation movies. And this was one of them. I believe this is one of the most successful of his career. But it's a fascinating interview, and I believe that Michael Sopkiv is the only American in this entire cast. And yeah, this movie is just amazing. And again, this was released by Severin. Severin, I said there's so many great labels out there, but Severin is probably my favorite. Just amazing, the the quality and the content that they give the consumer is just like out of bounds. An amazing movie, and again, it's got so many great qualities to it. It's super funny. It's so ridiculous. It's so cheesy and campy. It's pretty violent too. It's pretty dark. There's some scenes of pretty extreme brutality. It's super raunchy. It's pretty sleazy, and some great action. It kind of reminds me a lot of there's a Michael Douglas movie that came out in the I think came out in the 80s, maybe late 80s, called Romancing the Stone, and it's like an action adventure movie starring Michael Douglas, and very much reminds me of that. Like this plays out like more of an action exploitation movie. There's a lot of action. It all takes place in the jungle, and it's super entertaining. And again, it's just hard to believe that a movie like this got put out on Blu-ray and 4K. It's just amazing, and that's all thanks to Severin. I mean, one of the best companies around, probably the best exploitation company around now, that just put out just an amazing body of work. They just continually knock it out of the park. And again, I've been buying more and more movies that I haven't seen, and I still buy movies that I have seen in the past, but most of the time now I take more of a chance, and I've noticed that I have really lucked out, and I've gotten some really great gems, and I've been super excited. And this was an example of that. I had never seen it. I saw the artwork, the cover, and I was just like, this looks amazing. I read a little bit about it, sold, and yeah, you can't beat it. But Massacre in Dinosaur Valley is, if you're in a mood for pure, unadulterated escapism, this is it. This is kind of like the ultimate party movie. And it's just great. It's a party. It's a party on the big screen. So this is Jason Dean, and thank you again for your support. If you like this channel, please like and subscribe to it. All that good stuff. So yeah, can't say enough good things about this classic. So we will see you next time. Peace.